Erev Shabbat Shalom Rabotai. We are continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Pesachim. We are up to Perek Tet Mishnah Zayin. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilu Nishmat Neria ben Svetlana Aranbayev and Eliyahu ben Burchai Israelov Menuchatam Began Eden. Amen. The Torah states in Sefer Shemot chapter 12 pasuk 5 that the animal used for a Pesach offering must be a male and in its first year. The Mishnah discusses the law when an unsuitable animal is designated for a Pesach offering. The Mishnah begins, Hamafrish nekeva lepischo, if someone designates a female animal for his Pesach offering, o zachar ben sheteshanim, or a male animal in its second year, both of which are not acceptable for a Pesach offering, yir'eh ad she'istaev, the law is that it must be left to graze until it develops a blemish, v'imacher, and it is then sold. And the commentaries explained, as we learned in the last Mishnah, an animal that is consecrated as an offering, even if it cannot be offered, must first develop a disqualifying blemish before being redeemed from its sanctity. When the blemished animal is sold, the sale serves as a redemption and the sanctity of the animal is transferred to the money. The Mishnah continues, V'iplu damav lindava, and its money goes to the chest in the temple marked voluntary communal offerings, which the commentaries explain. There were 6 collection chests set up in the temple marked voluntary communal offerings. Money from these chests went to buy communal olah offerings to be brought on the altar at times when there were few offerings to be brought, as the Mishnayot say in Masechet Shkalim chapter 6, Mishnayot 5 and 6. Now these olah offerings were not a communal obligation, rather extra voluntary offerings, and that's why we labeled them voluntary on the chest. Now, since the female or overage animal was never acceptable to be used as a Pesach, it never became sanctified as a Pesach. Therefore, there is no reason for it to be used as a Shelamim either, since only an unused Pesach becomes a Shelamim. However, since it was fit to be used as an offering of some kind, it did become sanctified and its value must therefore be used for an offering. So with nothing else for it to be used for, the money goes to the collection chest. Now, this is unlike the case of the previous Mishnah where the animal was originally fit to be a Pesach. It therefore became a Shelamim when it was no longer usable as a Pesach offering. The Mishnah continues with another case where the animal designated as a Pesach offering cannot be brought. Hamafrish pischo umet, if someone designates an animal for his Pesach offering and then dies, Lo yiveenu beno acharav l'shem Pesach, since no one else was registered on the Pesach offering besides the dead man, the Pesach is invalid, and his son who inherits him may not bring it for himself as a Pesach offering. And the commentators explain, a Pesach offering that becomes ownerless for even a moment immediately becomes invalid, even if someone later registers on it again. And therefore, like we said, his son, like the Mishnah says, Lo yiveenu beno acharav l'shem Pesach, the son after him, meaning the son who inherits him, may not bring it for himself as a Pesach offering, el l'shem shlamim, only as a shlamim offering. Now this rule follows, this follows the rule that we discussed in the last Mishnah, that any animal designated for a Pesach offering that was not actually offered as a Pesach is brought instead as a shlamim offering. And that is the end of Mishnah Zayin. We continue now with Mishnah Chet. The Mishnah discusses what to do if a Pesach offering becomes mixed up with other types of offerings. HaPesach shenitarev bisvachim, if a Pesach offering became mixed up with other types of offerings which differ from the Pesach regarding their blood service and time of eating. As the commentaries explain, for example, 3 lambs were designated as offerings, 1 as a Pesach, 1 as an Asham, and 1 as an Olah, and they became mixed up with one another. There are differences between these 3 offerings as to how many times their blood is applied to the altar and for how long, or even if their meat is eaten. So that became of the mix-up. None of the animals can now be offered. The Mishnah says, Kulan yir'u ad she'ista'avu, all of them must be left to graze until they develop disqualifying blemishes, v'imachru, and then they are sold. This means that their sanctity is transferred by the owner to the money that the owner has, and the money is then used to buy offerings to replace the ones that were mixed up. Now, he redeems the animals with his own money and says, the Pesach, whichever animal it may be, is deconsecrated onto this coin, and the Asham, whichever it may be, is deconsecrated on this other coin, and the Olah, whichever it may be, is deconsecrated on this third coin. He then knows which coin carries the sanctity of which offering, and he uses it to buy that type of offering. However, the 3 animals are presumably not all worth the same amount of money. So the Mishnah says, "V'yavi bitmei hayafeh sheben mimin zeh." Therefore, the owner must bring this type of offering for the value of the most expensive of the mixed up animals. Ubitmei hayafeh sheben mimin zeh. And he must also bring the other type of offering for the value of the most expensive of them. Meaning, since we do not know which type of offering the most expensive animal was, each replacement offering must be worth the value of the most expensive of the mixed up animals. Now, for example, if one of the lambs was worth 1 selah, while the other 2 were each worth less than a selah, he brings a replacement Pesach worth 1 selah and a sham worth 1 selah, and an olah worth 1 selah. Vayafsida mutar mibeto, and he loses the extra cost from his pocket, meaning he loses the extra amount of money he must spend in order to buy 3 replacement animals, each worth the price of the most expensive lamb. For when he redeems the animals, he must use a selah for each animal. And the Mishnah now says an exception to this ruling, nitarev bivchorot, if however the Pesach offering became mixed up with firstborn offerings. Now we know a firstborn male animal called the bechor of cattle, sheep, and goats is sanctified automatically at birth and must be given to a Kohen who brings it as an offering, as the Torah describes in Sefer Bamidbar, chapter 18, Psukim 17 and 18. Now, the blood service of the Pesach and the Bechor are the same, so the mix-up does not pose any problem regarding offering the animals. The issue that does present a problem is the eating of the offerings. For in this regard, the laws of a Pesach and a Bechor are different. A Bechor may be eaten only by Kohanim and their households, while a Pesach may be eaten by any Jew as registered on it. In addition, the time allowed by the Torah to eat the meat of a Bechor is 2 days and the night in between, while a Pesach may be eaten only until midnight of Pesach night. So now Rabbi Shimon will explain this issue. Rabbi Shimon says, Im chavurat Kohanim, if the group registered on the Pesach is made up of only Kohanim who are permitted to eat Bechor offerings, yochelu, they need not sell the animals and then buy new ones. Rather, they may eat the offerings on Pesach night. They bring both animals as offerings on Erev Pesach and then eat a piece of each one that night. This way, they are sure to have their piece of the Pesach offering and have not done anything wrong by eating from the Bechor as well. However, since one of these offerings is a Pesach, which can be eaten only until midnight, they can eat from these offerings only until then. Anything left at that time becomes forbidden as notar, offerings left beyond their time, since it might be the Pesach meat. The rabbis, however, disagree with Rabbi Shimon's ruling because it creates a condition that requires the Bechor offering to be eaten in less time the Torah allows, which is 2 days. This increases the chance that some of it will be left over and become forbidden as notar. Therefore, they hold it's better to let the mixed up animals graze until they become blemished, as in the first case of the Mishnah, and the Rav does tell us, Ven halacha ki Rabbi Shimon, the halacha does not follow Rabbi Shimon. That is in Rabotai, today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai leolam, amen v'amen.